Liquid vs. G2, map 3, one of the fastest games I've ever seen, to be honest, and I think it clocked in at about 25 minutes if you don't include the 3-minute halftime break, which is insane. And it's honestly the Monesy show for a lot of this game, so I wanted to take a look at exactly what that looks like. Monesy going quickly through ramp, dualies in hand. I mean, it's not like he's gonna get that kill every time, but you know, when you open up pistol round and you're hitting shots like that, he knows what's up. He knows he's just gonna dominate this game. And man, it's kind of crazy. Like, people talk about the AWP is worse in CS2, but man, are AWPers dominating, at least at this event. Maybe it just took a little bit of time for AWPers to kind of adjust to the new game or something like that. Because, I mean, Monesy has this game. We had Safe that was like, whatever, 25-2 or something in one half, or nearly a half of Counter-Strike. Obviously, Zywoo's been dominant. AWPers seem to be, Ultimate has been destroying people. Obviously, AWPers have been turning up for the last, like, for this event for sure, but for the last little while, it feels like there's been a kind of a resurgence in the AWPers dominating. Although Monesy didn't really have too much of a downfall. Does that count as a kill for Monesy? It doesn't count as a kill, right? Like, even in HLTV, I think bomb explosions count as deaths, but I don't think they're gonna count that for a kill for Monesy. But regardless, Monesy has been pretty consistent because he's great with rifles. You know, he hasn't had to be reliant on the AWP, and if he's been struggling, he's just been able to pull out the rifle, whereas other AWPers seem like they struggled for a little bit. And obviously, Monesy already 7-1 before ever touching an AWP, and he may even be more than 7-1 as they go for the ramp push, basically going for back-to-back ramp rushes. And what's crazy is that usually when a game goes super fast, I'm saying this is like about a 25-minute game, typically that's because the T side is dominant and they're just playing a lot of aggressive, fast plays. But this is the CT side being dominant and still having the game go this quickly, which just means there's a lot of dominant rounds where G2 are going for most likely some aggressive plays. Now, what's funny about this is that we just had 2 ramp pushes in a row, I believe, and then we have Monesy with the AWP holding ramp this round. And this is a round where, you know, Liquid might expect a bit of a change up, maybe Monesy out towards outer. You've got Ultimate with the AWP, which, I don't know, I've never personally been a huge fan of picking up the AWP on T-side Nuke, especially early in the half. It feels like something I want to fall back to if my typical strats aren't working, but it works for some teams just fine. It just seems like there's also lots of teams that really avoid it, like Prime Astralis, I think, avoided it. It feels like the best teams generally avoid it. I'd wonder what Monesy does, because I suppose Monesy is someone you'd probably want to have the AWP, and Ultimate maybe just the same kind of like pillar, you know, the same kind of like, well, if a round's going badly, Ultimate can always bring it back for us, so why not let him grab the AWP early on when we have the cash to do so, especially as they won round 4. But unfortunately, Ultimate, I mean, the round kind of is already gone sideways once Yakindar dies. Liquid do have a decent amount of utility. They can go for mostly anything, but this is a play where Twist doesn't want to get too aggressive. It's very easy for Monesy to potentially be rotated into lower based on the way things went. He was in ramp. Oftentimes when you double ramp, you're going to have one of your ramp players rotate lower off of the contact. So there's nothing saying that Monesy isn't lower, which means basically Twist has to play pretty paranoid, and Ultimate wants to find something. Unfortunately, what he finds is that Monesy is staring at him from heaven, and that means there's a 5v3 just about immediately. And Monesy's activity is what really makes him so hard to deal with. I mean, all AWPers are going to be very active, obviously, but when it comes to Monesy, it feels like he's really got that ability to be constantly repositioning, but not missing those shots that are often pretty tough to hit as you rotate into a bomb site that's potentially mid-exec and you're rotating in. Those are the shots that are very hard for AWPers to hit. Usually you want to be, you know, you make your shots a lot easier in the case that you're posted up and they walk into you, as opposed to that, which also just makes Monesy pretty oppressing to play against, I think, especially on, you know, when he's on the CT side. It's just tough to deal with an AWPer where 10 seconds after you've seen him, he's already somewhere else. Now, in this position, by the way, this is something that I've noticed people just don't seem to do in pugs very often, like just opping heaven. Oppers love to go garage and hold outer, and it does feel great to hold outer from garage, but one of the reasons that heaven is so effective is because of the ability to rotate around like this. If there's an upper hit, you're there to support. If there's an outer play, you can easily rotate around, and once you make that first contact, if you do on that type of upper hit, it's very easy and very quick to reposition and catch your opponents in their next setup, right? So he gets the 2 kills upper and can immediately make his way back over towards outer, stop the outer cross. Naf was trying to kind of sneak his way across there, catch them off guard. Not allowed to do that. He has to back all the way up. And then what do you have if you're Liquid? You know, they invested into this round. They brought the last round pretty close, right? So you don't have a ton of money here for G2, but at the same time, Liquid don't have great utility and they have no control of anything whatsoever. Like legitimately no control of anything. So Monesy can just continue walking around looking for plays. And I will note one thing, by the way, that I thought was kind of nice, is that Yakindar here, he actually makes some noise. I just wanted to point this out when you're looking at like the plays that players make that kind of get kills for their teammates. I'm guessing what happened here, Yakindar drops. There's a molly clearly thrown from second vent. He jumps around, he's making noise. He doesn't hear Nico leave second vent. And so I think he likely just tells his team to molly that out, and they molly it out and kill him, right? So just a nice little play that maybe, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have done that otherwise, but he pays attention, notices the molly came from second vent. I'm not sure if Nico made any footsteps or if it was just the molly that was clearly thrown from second vent. But then they molly him out, get the kill, and not only that, but you know, they actually start turning this pretty quickly in their direction. But Hunter, who lurked directly back into second, so this is like the kind of big brain play where you have Nico die second vent through a smoke, and Hunter is like, well, they're not going to molly this again. That would be ridiculous if they did. Hides, kind of hoping they don't clear him here, which you do have to kind of, and the fact the flash didn't hit him. But it's still like, it's a smart play. It's gonna catch people quite often, and that's exactly what it does. 5-1 already. And I'm hoping that this video is shorter than the match, because, you know, 90% of the comments are going to be like, the video is doing good in the match, which is honestly fair. Like if the video is 30 minutes long and I say the match is 25 minutes, yeah, you can feel free. Okay, yeah, you can comment that. That's fair. But again, Monesy starting towards heaven or hell can quickly rotate over to ramp. Obviously, Malv's got the first contact, got a couple of kills. Monesy just rotates over. Monesy is a player that likes to support his team by doubling up ramp quite often as well. It's just, the problem with heaven is that if things are going slow, sometimes it feels like you're abandoning your mini player, and they can always like go top mini, drop down, and flank mini. So you do have, especially in CS2, for a long time it was like 70% of rounds you would see a lot of AWPers start heaven. Nowadays, I think AWPers are starting garage a bit more often, but it's still, I think heaven is still one of your more effective places to start, and it just gives you so many options off of the start of the round where you're able to support so many different positions, and you just have to be capable of making that rotation out of heaven, you know, in towards CT red, or, you know, into a position where you can actually support your mini player a little bit more effectively, potentially. It also allows you to smoke squeaky. Like, you can go up heaven, smoke squeaky, and then rotate, and you can throw, like, potentially even the first squeaky smoke and then rotate around. And that way your upper players have an easier time holding upper, because one of the hardest things to deal with is if you only have 2 squeaky resmokes, eventually in the round there comes a time when you have to just duel people that come out squeaky, and that's one way that you can lose rounds pretty easily, is trying to duel people, like trying to hold squeaky when there's no smoke, right? But if you have an extra resmoke, it can help you out a little bit. So Liquid, they've played pretty slow this round, but you have Nico flanking. Malbs was ramp. He got dropped the resmoke, so he was able to delay a little bit longer. Liquid might have even considered going ramp. They might have been looking for it, and they got resmoked and decided to cancel. They do have enough utility to go for a reasonable upper hit. You know, they've got several flashes. They've got Naf on top of lobby, so the hit's going to make a lot of sense. But Monesy, again, he's just got the read on Liquid here. Whether it's because of any strategy, he's just got a good read based on the way the game's going. He's in the exact right position, misses a couple of shots, and the key to this round that I don't think they quite caught on broadcast is this Naf. I think it has to be Naf. He's going to throw a flash that's going to blind his whole team. Which is really just unfortunate. Yeah, it lands. It doesn't land deep enough, I think. I think this is supposed to land just a little. Yeah, you can see it's a little higher. I think it's supposed to land just a little bit further so it doesn't blind players coming out of hut. Because now you have ultimate and Yakindar full blind. Naf isn't quite there in time to, you know, help support. Snacks is just going to peek out, get a kill. And not only, you know, does it allow Snacks to get that kill, it allows the time for Mulbs to get up heaven. And it means that Snacks isn't pressured by the players actually swarming him on the bomb site. So, you know, he might have gotten one and gotten immediately traded in that situation, or he might not have even gotten a single kill if they're not just standing in the middle of the open and hut when Snacks, you know, he might, instead of peeking, if he's getting pressured on, he might just back all the way up, you know, and try and buy time for Mulbs to rotate up heaven so they can fight together or something. You know, there's many misplays that can happen when you put pressure on someone, right? But unfortunate with the flash that full blinds the team, and that was honestly one of their best chances, I feel like, because, you know, they were 6-1 down, not looking good, right? But you lose pistol, it's easy to go 6-1 down. 6-2, and, you know, if it was 6-2, then I don't think you have the most money on G2. They potentially would have been in, I'm not going to do the math right now, okay? But they probably would have been in like force buy territory, or maybe they're single save and then buy. But it would be easy to have their economy broken, and then you can actually start rolling together a half. Whereas here you just have Monesy on 17-4, and they're just kind of getting a decent read on things that aren't working for Liquid. So they can see like these slow plays for Liquid are kind of struggling. The upper hit kind of failed. They're really struggling to find a place where Monesy is one of the things they're primarily struggling with at the moment. Find the location that Monesy isn't going to kill us from. You know, even when Monesy missed a couple shots, he still got a kill, and that's one of the like superpowers of Monesy, feels like, where he just shoots so fast that even when he misses, he still has. It's almost impossible to punish him for a miss unless you're just in the exact right position or you catch him in the open. But I mean, that peek from heaven was fucking... That single scope at that range is such a tough shot to hit, dude. It's such a deceptively tough shot to hit because it looks tough, but it's tougher than it looks even. Yeah, then the rotate out towards CT red. Catches Yakindar. I mean, look. Okay, to some extent, you do have to... Yeah, there's my cat. To some extent, you do have to give credit to Monesy, obviously, for doing a really good job. To some extent, you do have to be a little critical of Liquid for making his job too easy. However, when it comes down to it on Nuke CT side opping, there's just so many positions he can be at so many different times. It's really hard to effectively nullify an op with pure consistency. You need to sometimes just hope that you need to sometimes just pull him to the wrong location and then make him retake a bomb site. Put him in a position where he has to be looking at multiple angles at the same time, retaking upper, retaking lower, that type of thing. If you can't take control of an area because somehow he's literally in the exact position you're going every single time, you can throw some good flashes, but I mean, a couple of times he's like dodged these flashes that have been thrown or been partially blind and re-peeked and still got the kill, right? So maybe Liquid could have done a bit of a better job, but at the same time, it's just tough to deal with. I mean, Simple, I remember looking a few years ago in 2021, Simple had like a 1.2 kills per round on CT side Nuke or something ridiculous like that. And that's against Simple. You know, on a Na'Vi team, I think it was 2019 maybe, when it was like kind of not even that strong of a Na'Vi team, where it was like try and avoid Simple as like one of your main goals. And he's just, if you're in the right position at the right time, it's tough to deal with a CT side oppers, unless you can just shoot them in the head quick enough. And against most oppers, I think that's a relatively effective strategy. You can hold an angle. If it's a good angle, like a nice little off angle, depending on, you know, how disadvantageous the peek is for the oppers, you can hold the angle, he peeks into you, and you just hit him in the head. But when you're dealing with Monesy, he's just so fast. It's so, like, he's going to get a shot off almost no matter what. And if he hits the shot, then you're just dead. Or I guess you get hit for 85 some of the time, you know, once in a while. But already 11-1 half. Bang, bang, boom. That's ridiculous. And Liquid put up a bit of a fight. I mean, they had a few pretty effective rounds. They tried a few different things, but I'm not sure, like, this is what, the second or third time that Liquid get blown out in a map 3 nuke decider, and they talked about it afterwards. They're like, well, we just need to figure out what the problem here is. Like, why are we getting blown out in these maps? Obviously they must have some level of comfort on this map in scrims, right? Like they must, there's the reason they must be playing it, right? But maybe just their playbook isn't quite deep enough on this map, where if like option A isn't going well, maybe option B is just not quite ironed out in the way that you want it to be. That would make a lot of sense. Or maybe they just have too defined of a style, where it's a little too obvious what plays they're going for at what times. I know that for certain teams, and I think G2 was one of these teams where, okay, let's just watch this round. Twist with the dualies, like last bullet actually gets the kill. Yukindar defusing. Well played, respect. I think G2 was actually one of these teams where like, they didn't have any upper rushes, I think was a problem they used to have with Hooksy. And so you could kind of hold on to your utility a little bit longer and play, basically make it harder for G2 on other types of hits, right? Because if you don't have an upper rush, then your opponents just don't have to waste their utility as much, right? Maybe if they're not throwing anything, you're just going to make an upper rush happen, but they don't have to use their utility quite as much utility to control the early pushes. And that just has the knock-on effect of making your later round pushes much less effective, right? So if there's something like, for example, Liquid doesn't do any upper hits in the mid round, right? Then maybe that's allowing Monesy to rotate a little bit more freely and be in the right position at the right time, because Liquid have some sort of tendency that's being exploited, right? I'm not saying that's the case, but that would make a lot of sense for this type of map 3, where teams are kind of just blowing them out when it's these critical situations, and Liquid have like a strong tendency that's being noticed. But 12-2, you've got just the desperation force coming out of Liquid. Scout for Ultimate. I mean, Ultimate has had some pretty insanely good series. I wanted to do another review of Ultimate because I did the one review, and that one review was cool, but it was unfortunately a review where Ultimate simply didn't do a whole lot with the AWP. He did quite a bit with rifles, which is, I mean, it's a strong ability to be strong with rifles. It's definitely not a bad thing, but I want to look more at him opping. That's what I want it to be looking at. Anyways, G2 holding lobby with mobs at the back. They've got Monesy just clearing out. Oh, what would happen if an AWPer was on the other side? Well, you know, it's 12-2. I don't think the Liquid can afford an AWP at about this point. And they want to just go for a play out Squeaky. So the Squeaky utility wasn't there, but you had JKS with the utility in hand, which is why, one of the many reasons that Top Hut is such a strong angle. It's one of the few angles where you can safely just drop down a molly and then push, like basically stop a rush in its tracks without potentially just being like full swung on. Like if you do that from Tetris, sometimes you can get just full swung on and it can go badly. But did they throw a resmoke? I thought I heard a smoke bloom. It must have been the mini smoke. So it did delay them, but they didn't waste all of their utility doing so. So the hit can still come out. Okay, yeah, the hit can still come out, but JKS can still just shut it down completely. Interesting. This is one of the few angles, by the way, where I think the ump is actually quite strong. I'm not saying you should buy the ump, but if you were to buy the ump, this is where I would use it. Because at this range, you're hitting people for like 98 damage or something stupidly high with an ump. Like, ump close range headshot damage is crazy high. And so, although, like, this is the most obvious spot in the world where this is, like, the MP9 is designed for this position. But at the same time, actually, it's a position where I think the ump actually is quite strong. I've seen people shut down some upper hits with an ump in that position, and you just dink them for 95 plus, and they're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? And especially when you're coming out Squeaky, usually you've taken some chip damage along the way. Like, it's pretty common that you just take a tick from the molly before it gets smoked. You take a tick from a nade as they dropped it off hut, right? You just have 90 health or something, and then you just get one shot headshotted by an ump, and you're like, okay, that's reasonable. Totally reasonable. Where you have Liquid going for, you know, they're trying to go for basically, I don't know, is this an outer stack? Not really. Yakindar, I want to see this because I think he just went with the best spawn. He's got the best spawn. With the best spawn, it used to be that you could cross safely. I think, though, you need the glaive smoke, and I think you can cross safely. I don't think they can be on top of Silo before you can get here, as long as you have the best spawn. But I think there is some interaction between, you know, maybe the second best spawn and the best T-spawn or things like that. Although I don't know if you necessarily usually send your best T-spawn Silo, but whatever. Gap in the mini smoke, and this is, I'm sure, intentional. There's a gap here. Catches ultimate falling back after he was trying to do a bit of spamming. Then you've got Yakindar in the right position. He does get a flash from Twists, which is key. Peeking out towards here, I mean, generally is going to be, in Pugs, is almost always going to be safe. Nobody's really posted on you in this situation, but in a pro game, a flash is certainly going to be helpful, partially because a flash helps you get away, right? Like right here, Yakindar, because of that flash, can probably get away if he wanted to and just jump down if he wanted to. I'm not sure if that's the best play to do in that situation. I mean, he is fighting against sort of a force, and because of this delay, what he's doing right now, the outer smokes are going to dissipate, so there's not that much pressure on him actually to do anything here. Once he gets hit with the scout once, though, I think there is a bit of pressure on him because there is reasonable ability, certainly, for G2 to have a nade. I think it's unlikely they have a molly in this situation, but maybe they could. It's hard to say. I'm sure what he's worried about here is the fact that they could have a molly and just molly him out, but the reality is, like, I can question whether or not he should be staying here and fighting this. I think that's up in the air. I don't think you necessarily can say one way or the other for sure. But what you can say is that Yakindar just has to get that kill. It's just, and this is just, he's just not having a great game if he's not getting that kill, you know? I mean, bad games happen. It is what it is. But I think in reality, it's like, should he be fighting there or not? Well, maybe not. Argue about it however you want, but 90% of the time he's getting that kill. You know, 90+% of the time he's just gonna find a way to get that kill because Snacks missed 2 shots on him. Instead, he doesn't find a way to get that kill, and although Twists, I think, seem to be having a pretty decent game, it's hard for AWPers to activate on T side, so it's hard for Ultimate to do anything. He goes like 3 and 14. I can't really blame him for that. And if your entry fragger on T-side Nuke is struggling, sometimes it's hard as well, because he might have just been in a situation where he's like, you know, Yakindar had so many rounds where he just died instantly that he just like got cold, essentially, you know? But anyways, great game from G2. Liquid said, and I agree, got to find a way to solve the nuke problem. Insane game from Monesy, and to some extent, I think the reality of CS is, especially for AWPers, if they're just hitting their shots and they're in the right place at the right time, it can be hard to mount any sort of counterplay against them on a map like Nuke, you know, or Train, which is the map everyone hates on but should come back. Say it with me. We want Train back in the map pool.